Okay, so let me give you a testimony of tracing the evil. Tracing the evil. So, part three of narcissistic parents and the forensics. The forensics. We're going to go deep. We're going to go back to the beginning. Okay, so here's my testimony. I can trace the evil as far back as age 8. Age 8 years old. I'm going to say no, age 10 years old. Age 10 years old. I can trace this legacy of neglect and cruelty as far back as age 10, but of course I can go a little bit further back, but it's a little bit fuzzy, my memory, but I kind of can pick up on get some clarity on some things that I kind of remember as far back as age 5. However, around age 10, my mother decided that she wanted to go out of town to Washington, D.C. I was 10 years old. During this time, I had a 2-year-old little brother. And so she needed someone to keep us while she went on this church trip. So she sent my brother to stay in a secured environment with some friends of hers. He was 2 years old. But then she sent me next door to the neighbor's house. Now, the neighbor had 6 children, and it was a single mother. And they were dirt, pissy, poor. And the children were usually home alone by themselves. Their house was in a hot mess. There was roaches everywhere. And so this memory has stuck with me a really long time. And you know what? You don't reflect back on these events until you get a little bit older and you're able to fully decipher your life and the people in it. And so I know that, and especially when you become a parent, you're able to really, honestly, take a full observation of the life you lived, and as a young person, and then the life that you're living as an adult, and you're able to really put 2 and 2 together when you become a parent, and all of a sudden the lights will pop on in your head, and you're like, wait just a minute. So I remember my mother, giving me this little speech and about she was going out of town, and that the neighbor next door was going to keep me, and so she gave me the key to the house, and if I needed to get anything, I can just go in the house and just get it. But I'm supposed to stay at the neighbor's house for the most part of it. And so I never remember my mother, going to the neighbor and bringing me and the neighbor into one, little meeting and telling me and introducing and talking about what she wanted to do. But maybe she had this negotiation with the neighbor. Maybe she gave the neighbor some money or whatever. I don't know. All I know is that she left me with the key to be able to get in and out of the house. But she wanted me to be able to stay at the neighbor's house, which the neighbor hardly ever was home. The only time she came home, I think, was at night. Now, this little shindig went on for about 3 days that my mother was all the way upstate in Washington. And so nobody came to check on me the whole entire time. I was at this neighbor's house who had 6 kids, and she was a single parent, and she was always at work and gone, and her kids was running around the neighborhood like some wild rats. Yeah. And so here I am. My mother just threw me into that little scenario, gave me the key to the house, and left. Okay. Oh, now, so over time, I did have my moment. Even at 10 years old, I knew that was wrong because I felt a sense of vulnerability. I felt unsafe. I felt afraid. I was in shock and awe because even at 10, I started thinking, why my mama leaving me with these people? Their house is nasty. and they got all these kids in here, and they mama ain't never home. So I knew at that moment that something in the milk was just not clean. But here I am, a 10-year-old, and when you're a young child, your voice don't matter. It does not. Your voice don't matter. When it comes to you, you're no competition for an adult who calls all the shots in your life. And so at some point, it really hurt me in my heart that my brother got to go somewhere, you know, that was protecting and looking over him, and my mom just dumped me off in this raggedy woman's house with all of her kids, and she was hardly ever even home. So I thought about that for a short while, and you know, it did leave a scar on me, and I managed to just go on with life because kids are resilient. But I did keep a mental note in my heart of how wrong that really was. And so I had moments while my mother was gone on her little church trip, that I would get so frustrated in that nasty house with them kids in there, and their mama ain't home, and no food was in there half of the time. So I would go in, and I would go home to my house, my apartment, and go in there and lock my door. And I'm sitting in, I'm literally basically taking care of myself at 10 years old in my mama's apartment while she way up in motherfucking Washington. Yes. That's basically what the bottom line of that experience really was. Really was, honey. Because that was wrong on all kinds of levels. But by the grace of God, God has been with me a really long time. Yes, he has. God has had his angels with me a really long time. He said, when thy mother and thy father forsake thee, surely. No, the word says, when thy mother and thy father forsake thee, surely I would take. Surely, Lord, you would take me in. You would take me in, God. And he has. But I can remember going to my apartment and being in there by myself and being scared. But I would go in the refrigerator and I'd make me some cereal and milk. I think I lived off of cereal and milk for 3 days. The only time I had food was that because she left on a Thursday and came back on like a Sunday or something. And I remember getting up and going to school that Friday. So that gave me a full meal for lunch and breakfast and lunch. And then when I got home from school, them children was all over the place and their mama went home, and I just went on into my little apartment and got me some cereal and closed and locked my door because I just didn't want to be so it's as far back as that you can trace the neglect. Sometimes we may forget because we were so young, but the forensics on this goes way deeper than we could ever imagine. The legacy of their treatment as a parent has layers of it, and over time those layers are building up in your consciousness, and you may not know. Some people don't know why they don't feel comfortable around their mother or their father or whoever their guardian is. They just know they get an eerie feeling when these individuals are around them. But it all goes back to you really going into a state of forensic research your own life and find out who and what, when, where, why, how. Find out, because there is a reason why you have that eerie feeling. There's a reason why.